So, everyone, it's a pleasure to have you all here. Today, we have an amazing presentation of Openscapes, working as Worldview, with the speaker Julia Stewart Lowndes. Just to remind that this talk is recorded and will be posted on the YouTube of Our Lady's Room. Feel free to turn off your cameras if you don't want to be recorded. Just to remind that it's a safe place, inclusive and harassment-free space. We are committed to promoting a respectful environment where everyone feels welcome to learn, connect, and grow. Please remember that all our attendees are expected to adhere to our code of conduct and use the chat for introducing yourself, say wherever you are, and ask questions or raise your hand, what you prefer. What to expect from this talk? This talk will give you valuable insights into the future of open science and show how a simple concept can have a huge impact on innovation and progress. Some topics that we are discuss in the presentation today will be in understanding forking, promoting innovation and collaboration, real-world application, and open science in practice. Welcome, everyone. I'm happy to welcome to you our November event. I'm Rafaela, Our Ladies Rome chapter organizer. We are thrilled to have you to join us today. Get ready for an engaging and informative experience. Just to introduce Our Ladies, it's a global community with the mission of promoting the R language and for empowering women at all user levels by building a collaborative global network. It's a friendly community founded in 2012 by Gabriela Queiroz in San Francisco. Our Ladies Rome, it's a local chapter of Our Ladies Global dedicated to promoting inclusivity in the R language community. Our monthly meetings provide a platform to discuss current trends and hot topics in R. Our Ladies Rome has grown widely recognized community. Since January, we have welcomed over 1K members on Meetup and gained 2K RSVPs and successfully organized 29 events. The founder of the chapter is Claudia Vitolo and co-founder of Our Ladies Global. The organized chapter are Federica, Silvana, and me. If you are interested in speaking at one of our events or would like to propose a speaker or workshop, please scan the QR code and fill up the form. And if you would like to contribute or be an organizer, let us know with the forms, this one. The next events will be in December with Nina Bellini Sabenek, its founder of our OpenSite, Ali Holder in January, founder of 3E App, and Laura Kahn, author of One Health and Politics of COVID-19. So, without further ado, we are thrilled to have with us Julia Stewart Lowndes, the Director of NASA Openscapes, who will be sharing her insights on the transformative power of working in the world of open science. Julia has an impressive background as marine ecologist with a deep passion for data science and open science, combining her expertise in science collaboration and cloud-based workflows. Please join me welcome Julia.
Great. Thank you so much, Rafaela and Frederica and everyone part of the Our Ladies Rome team. And hello to everyone here. It's so great to be here with you all. Thanks for joining us. I am so thrilled to be here. I'm going to share my screen and kick us off. So I'm going to be speaking about forking as a worldview, which is a big idea that frames Openscapes thinking and how we work. And I'll you'll understand what all of those things are, hopefully by the end of the talk. And the slides are also available for you to follow along. And I believe I'm going to put those links in the chat. I'll say too, before we get started, it is such a pleasure to be here with Our Ladies. I have been a part of the Our Ladies community for, gosh, almost almost 10 years now at this. No, that's not true. Maybe 8 years or so at this point. But the R community, and particularly Our Ladies, has welcomed me so much into the world of coding and open science that what you'll see through Openscapes is a lot of work to try to include more folks into that feeling of what R and Our Ladies is capable of as part of this this thinking, and how we have even developed the practice of forking, and started to talk about it more broadly. Um, so this is, yeah, I'm excited to share these sort of work in progress ideas with you. Um, so a big question that motivates our work is, what if we connected our skills and our values as a daily practice for big compounded challenges we're tackling, like climate change, like social justice and beyond, and really how we can harness the power of data science and open science, along with mentoring and teaching each other, teamwork across all definitions of teams and communities, both in person and remote. Um, and really, we're inspired by this quote that says, to address the climate emergency, we must rapidly, radically reshape society. We need every solution and every solver. So really, we're thinking about how we can all become solvers for these solutions together. So I'll start off with a quick overview and impact of what Openscapes is, and then share forking as a worldview specifically. So I am Julia Lowndes. I also go by Julie. I am a marine ecologist, and I founded Openscapes in 2018. I've been an active part of the open science community for a long time now. Maybe that's maybe about 10 years, through the R community and our studio, our OpenSci, Our Ladies, and also through Mozilla, and now more and more in the Python and geospatial community. And I really developed Openscapes based on a need that I had felt as as a marine ecologist and scientist, but also seeing what was possible with open science, and like the feeling that of welcome that the R community and Our Ladies have really fostered in me. I've been an affiliate. I'm currently an affiliate at the University of California in Santa Barbara after being staff there for 11 years at a institute called NCs. And so these are a few photos with some of the folks from Openscapes and in my research, but you'll see this is a hugely collaborative effort throughout. So what is Openscapes? Openscapes is an open source approach and a movement that is shifting culture by helping people find each other and collaboratively evolve their work with modern and kind open science workflows. There's over 1,000 people that have been involved directly in our programming, and then many, many beyond that as well. And these folks are from academia, from government, from open source and beyond. There's a big focus on research and thinking about this as kinder science for future us. And this illustration by Alison Horst illustrates kind of how we think about open science as this beautiful landscape full of data, people, communities, many paths forward. And what we do is help meet folks at the trailhead and help them get oriented to this world and start traveling these existing paths safely, helping each other, and also building new paths together as needed. And these animals in the bottom left, with rain clouds or kind of working on your own, are ways that we can feel kind of stuck in science or in our work. And so we're really sort of helping welcome folks to that trailhead and building beyond. Openscapes has recently been recognized by the Biden-Harris White House, which is amazing. We are so thrilled that open science is being recognized, and so honored that we ourselves were called out. We were recognized for movement building for kinder open science for future us. And this was an effort at NOAA Fisheries, NASA, and EPA, which are three different parts of the US government working on environmental and earth science issues around climate and beyond. And this is just an enormous win for us all working in this open science, open source space. My colleague Ileana Fenwick and I, who were able to represent the Openscapes community and receive this recognition a few months ago in Washington, D.C. And when we think about movement building, this is something that's, not something you often hear or recognized. It's not a specific software or something more potentially tangible to point to, but we think about movement building as in part by supporting teams that are tackling something hard to do and using open source and community building efforts around that. So when we work with NASA, we've been helping them tackle a challenge around cloud migration and how to support teams and researchers to have new workflows using code to access data in the cloud. And when we work with NOAA Fisheries, they're focused on workforce modernization and helping their staff members upskill towards using more collaborative and open source resources. So we've been helping these teams make these really hard shifts that they define as something they want to do. And there are so many amazing stories of the people that we work with. This is a subset of some of the groups we've worked with. But it's been amazing to see how this power of open source and what's possible with open science can really help change how individuals operate, how teams operate, and how whole organizations operate. So when we mentor different groups of folks, you'll see that individuals develop specific technical skills like learning a new package in R or installing R Studio for the first time or using Quarto or Jupyter or some skill that they're building on a technical level. But they're also growing mindsets on a leadership scale where they're braver to speak up in meetings or have seen something work in one place and bring that to another. And those changes in individuals also change how teams operate, how they build psychological safety together, which is the idea that it's safe to speak up with your idea or question. And that's how these teams are able to tackle seemingly insurmountable challenges. It's about developing workflows that don't rely on 90 emails in order to access data. It's introducing a Google form or some other kind of automation. And that's as there's multiple teams within an organization all working in these new open source ways, that's when you'll see these shifts like we've seen with NASA Earth Data and NOAA Fisheries and also California EPA and other groups. So it's really exciting to see this power of welcoming folks to these ways to work. Some of the things that the NASA Openscapes mentors have been working on as we've helped support this way for them to think and work is that they are leading some of our champions programs where they're providing direct mentorship around their deep expertise of NASA data from all of these different missions that are collecting geospatial data via satellite. They're leading workshops and events where they're centering empathy and kindness and where users are starting from in the way that they teach. They've created an all-in-one tutorial cookbook using Quarto that it combines code from Python and R, where they're able to put tutorials that they've already tested through teaching and then have these sort of refined tutorials in one place. They've been supporting cloud infrastructure in partnership with our colleagues at 2i2c and have a Jupyter hub where their tutorials can run across different languages. And then they've also created just absolutely game-changing libraries in Python and in R that have changed the way we access data from NASA in the cloud or locally. And these R and Python libraries really have changed the first experience from 30 lines of bash code and clicking out to secret keys. And now it is a few lines of code in Python or R that you're able to install as you would other packages. So those are some examples of like the impact that these NASA teams have had through this sort of mentorship and movement building. And a specific example too, from on a smaller scale, of one team from NOAA Fisheries is thinking about how they, first of all, these five people, as a starting point in this little Zoom box, they were working on a report that they created every single year. And the first thing they did through our work together was that they reframed that report writing as a collaborative effort rather than something that people passed different parts off to and somebody else edited and collated. They decided to think about this together as a collaborative effort and then incorporate new tools to enable them to do their work, which included tools like Quarto, tools like GitHub. And then they were able to now include more people in that workflow and are helping other teams across NOAA Fisheries to make this change as well. So I think, a lot of this is also motivated by this pressure many people we're all feeling about needing to innovate while, in quote, doing more with less. This is a quote from one of our colleagues who at NOAA Fisheries who said that, doing more with less is really doing less and less. So really we should be thinking about doing different with less. So how the way we work with these teams is thinking, and it's about working effectively and openly as teams and role modeling that and helping teams see that shift to that through small incremental steps that let them continue doing the deliverables that they're responsible for. So we're really focused on researchers and helping them learn skills of immediate use. And as we have cohorts of teams coming together, they can either learn together as a team and then start shifting to developing what they need together as a team, whether that's a workflow or a library or whatnot. But one of this like important sort of open science approach to resource development is about having a place and a space to start. And that might be a GitHub repository or a Google Drive, but it's also potentially a regular Zoom call where people are building community with each other, getting a sense of what each other know and can offer, building confidence to speak up, understanding how to describe what their needs. So it's really a place where they can start sharing early and iterating with feedback and developing a make once or use often mindset. And it's a place they can really build real relationships and also focus on maintaining their ongoing work while also onboarding other folks and innovating. And I've mentioned open science a few times, so I thought I'd just define it briefly. It's alongside open source and enabled by open source in many ways, but it's really a fundamental change in how science is done towards promoting reproducibility, transparency, sharing, and collaboration. And it's a global movement happening all across science. Something that we think about with Openscapes is this definition of open science has often focused on products and things and putting things out there like a publication or code or data. But it's also about process. It's about how we work and our intentionality around how we work every day. And reusing what's already out there is an important part of this process. So it's the idea of looking to see if someone has encountered this problem before. How could I Google this on Stack Overflow, or how could I expect that maybe someone has built a package around this? But inclusion is really critical and central to this idea of open science as a process. And it takes real mindset and skill set shifts. And it means for teams both having a chance to learn new things and an openness to unlearning things that they've done or habits they've built. Um, so when all of our Openscapes work, we really focus on technical and social infrastructure together, and we try to role model. We watch and learn from the open science and open source communities, and try to help role model that across all of our work and initiatives. And it is this beautiful feedback loop where as you use similar tooling, that promotes and streamlines teamwork, and then as you feel like a part of a team and identify like that, you are better equipped to learn new tooling together, and then you're able to evolve and iterate together more easily. I've sort of been mentioning this throughout, but this focus on welcome and inclusion and thinking about entryways and connection are a big part of how we work. And that shows up through artwork and also through specific programs that we've designed. So we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but the Pathways to Open Science program is a program for Black marine scientists that was a specific response to thinking about entryways and ways to specifically welcome different groups. So that's a brief sort of taste of some of the work that we do with Openscapes, but all of this has really formed, I think most of what we do comes from this worldview that we have about forking. And it was something that I never had even thought about saying out loud until I began talking to some colleagues that are outside of open source, but are really leaders in community building and communication. And so thinking about how to describe this sort of worldview that underlies our work. So and I'm excited to see what you all think about this so we can discuss, because he's still sort of formulating these ideas. But so forking is a concept from software development. And I think it's been made much more visible and they're popular through tools like GitHub, where forking is an action you can take with code. So one sort of definition I have for forking is that it's taking something that works and is made available and adapting it for your own use. And while you're doing that, you're also networked back to the original source. And that network serves a dual purpose where you're able to contribute back to that original source, and you're able to provide appropriate credit as you continue building forward. So, it's about taking something that works to new places. It's also, I first heard this from Mozilla, this available for reuse and remix. It's like seeing something out there. It might be in a GitHub repository, and you can move this into a new place and make your own edits to it, but without bothering the original, but being able to contribute back. But I think that so this is a concept from software development, and it has elements of copying or iterating, leveraging, borrowing, lifting, stealing. These are words we often use in English when we really mean forking, because it's not one way where you're taking something and never connect it back. You're not sort of hesitant or tiptoeing that you might be borrowing someone else's work. And you're certainly not, doing something wrong like plagiarizing or taking. There's a real generosity to forking. There's something about someone is sharing early and it's imperfect, but there's appropriate kind of security, privacy, credit around forking, and there's this deep value of trust and generosity and inclusion and connection. It's the idea that someone has taken a lot of intention to share something with the world and put it out there. And it's welcome, you're welcome to move that forward and kind of appreciate that work that they've put in already so that you can have another idea or adapt this, but not have to start from scratch. So there's this like beauty in this idea of open source and putting something out there like forking. And it's also there's also something about it where you don't hold on too tightly to something you've put out in the world. Um, it's, you're not going to be able to measure every user that's used it or track any kind of, um, that's not really the purpose of sharing it only, right? You're enabling other people, you're wanting to celebrate and amplify what people are doing, but not everything can be measured, and that's okay. Um, so this has been, like I said, this has been an idea from software development, but we're forking things all the time that aren't software. And so I wanted to give a few examples and then talk about like kind of what this means at a daily level, and then we can discuss more together. Um, some examples of forking that aren't, well, I'll show a couple software too things, but one example is forking documentation and tutorial books, right? Like this is in part around underlined by um, technical abilities like Quarto and GitHub that enable you to structure a format in a certain way and bring this into your own space. But even the idea that you could have a book that was a collection of tutorials written in a certain tone, or that you could then use that same structure and tone for specific workshops as you go, like that is like kind of it's the you're forking the underlying tech, but you're also forking the concept of this and the practice of this. And so much of a workshop is not only writing code in a notebook, it's about designing the workshop, it's about reaching out to um, potential workshop participants and helping them understand why they would show up and what they'll learn. There's so much around workshop design that you're able to fork as well. Um, another example is with a Python library called Earth Access that I mentioned before that the NASA Openscapes folks have developed. And something that's amazing here is that it's a Python library that does, like I said, has changed the game for how we access NASA data. But the development of this Python library is open source development. And they've basically forked open source software development into a government agency so that the work is driven by GitHub issues that real scientists who are using this submit, and the community is able to focus their development on what users need in a really radical way. That is not only a Python library and kind of the way we think about software, but it's really forking this concept of open development in a really important way. So there's so many ways to think about forking, and I'm excited to hear what this brings up for all of you. Facilitation styles is something we fork a lot. I hear language from my yoga teacher about effort and ease going together, and I think about how like teaching, intro R has a balance of effort and ease. I think, the Earth Access Python library is a hex shape, which is kind of a forked idea from our R community around packages and how we communicate around packages. We fork artwork and slide decks. Often, someone's created a slide deck and you make a copy of it and link back to the original, but then iterate for your audiences. So there's so many awesome ideas um, that you're able to sort of, you listen to a podcast and it sparks an idea, and you say that out loud at another meeting. That's like forking that idea into your work. There's kind of this, yeah, it's like a really generative way of thinking about all of this. I thought with this audience, it would be cool to talk a little bit about the Champions program for Openscapes as a specific example of forking and getting into it a little bit more. Um, because the Openscapes Champions program is really about reusing and iterating and developing something in a really modular way that is also the way I often think about coding in R, but thinking about designing things in a modular way for reuse and iteration. Um, so the Champions program is the Openscapes flagship program that we lead with science teams. And we've had actually over 27 cohorts at this point, where we've worked with a lot of different teams together. And the original design of it was really forked from a Mozilla program that was called the Open Leaders Program, that was cohort based, remote by design, focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and your own project, and helping people learn together and get unstuck. That was an existing thing that I forked with the idea of having teams participate and using open curriculum that was at the time largely Jenny Bryan's curriculum. Like I was designing an avenue to teach existing materials that had resonated with my team as marine ecologists. And from there, we've then been able to iterate and grow many other programs from this original design. But a lot of what we teach in it, like I said, was forked from existing things. So um, teaching the R for data science figure that in the top left here, that is probably the most impactful figure in my whole science career. Like this way of thinking so strategically about data analysis and in such a common way. But also then we talk about tools like Quarto and GitHub and how they support collaborative thinking and open publication and beyond. We also teach a growth mindset. So the idea that mentorship is a skill that we can develop, just like we can develop skills around the technical side. So these are ideas that we've forked from different places as we read different community approaches for movement building and inclusion, and build these into the curriculum. Um, and something that's enabled a lot of the forking we've done as well is that we do have specific R code to help us sort of connect these modular pieces together. So Sean Cross and now many contributors have helped us build a workflow where we can have our metadata in Google Sheets in a public way that enables different people to see and contribute to them. And then our R package helps turn that metadata into the infrastructure for our teaching programs. So those often show up as a Google Doc. So thinking about how we can use R and automate different parts of the infrastructure setup so that we can focus on teaching in the teams. Um, so yeah, so and I guess I would say too, from here, we've now been able to fork that original champions idea to many places, both to the NOAA and NASA examples, as well as to other programs like the Pathways to Open Science program, and a lighter weight program for individuals so we're able to kind of take the common parts and adapt, but reuse because of this concept of forking. So forking is this fundamental way that we work, and it's also we've realized it's also this fundamental part of open science culture change. And I'm going to show you our Openscapes flywheel on the next slide. And I realized as I've been talking about forking specifically that this is actually the first step in how we've worked for years, but we just never said it out loud in that way. And so I'll show it to you in this flywheel. And I want to say too that the flywheel is an open source tool that we developed that is welcome for you to use. It's a tool for movement building. And I reach for it when I'm planning or designing or communicating or impact or tracking and monitoring. I reach for the flywheel for that, just like I would reach for R if I was doing data analysis, or I would reach for a Jupyter Hub if I was going to be working in the cloud. It's a tool that I keep coming back to, um, that helps me think. So this flywheel is a concept where transformations and change in an organization, or in our case, a movement, happens from consistently doing key activities that add up over time. So our flywheel has six main activities. The first one is about like forking what works already, forking common workflows within a team or within a open community. Um, you know, taking those common workflows, skills, tools, approaches, and inspiring others with those. And through that, we're amplifying open leaders within a team, within an organization, or helping to grow and inspire others. Oops. Um, then from there, we're able to help engage a future us mindset where people are thinking beyond their own computers or their own specific project. We can do that by welcoming more folks to see what's happening or to join a project, and to start creating space and place for them to do that. So that's what I mentioned before, whether that's a GitHub repository or a Zoom meeting. And often it's a combination of many things. And from there, we're able to empower a learning culture. And by doing that, by specifically investing in learning and trust and teaching each other and unlearning different habits and starting to work openly together. And then this flywheel spins again. This flywheel, kind of works on a daily level or across years, and been trying to think about how we can monitor kind of activities and impact of what we've been doing. But so this is one snapshot of looking at this where, again, sort of starting at the bottom, by leveraging what already exists, including open educational resources and connecting to open communities, we've been able to help science teams connect and reuse and leverage resources from many different open source communities and from across government and from each other. And from there, we've inspired, this whole community has inspired other work. So I've mentioned the work at the White House. There's people who on a daily level have said they've stayed at their jobs because of the interactions they're having with colleagues and the morale that they're having at this point. Yeah, we focused on welcoming and storytelling and helping amplify the work that people are doing, and on create space and place. That these are now all of the programs that we're leading, at this point, that keep being forked from one program to another. So yeah, and I guess, yeah, I'm just sort of reminiscing about all this, the way we're investing in learning and trust, and having scientists, professional scientists say, I just saved 400 would-be emails in 4 months because our team uses GitHub now, and there's fewer emails asking where things are and what's the status of things. And we're sharing openly, through documentation, through talks, through publications, and really helping then create things, Python libraries, all many different things that then can be leveraged again by other groups, and the flywheel turns again. So that's kind of the way we've been thinking about the flywheel, as we've gone forward. I'm going to share a few ideas about how to develop this forking as a worldview and what it looks like. So one way that what it open looks like is to develop places for consistent trust, feedback, and iteration. So this is an example as we've worked with the NASA mentors for the last 4 years, where we really focus on the top by learning together first, learning with a small community of people who have opted in to spend time learning and building together. And they were supported by this time as part of their jobs. From there, they were able to peer teach and document and basically take what they learned from a small community back to their own data centers and and support their colleagues to learn new open source mindsets and tooling. And then they were able to start supporting scientists and what they call end users pretty quickly. And that Champions program is one format where they taught and really got to know scientists early. Um, and then everything they're developing is also a contribution back to the open science community because we're using open source tooling and channels to share this work. On a daily level, it can look like this, what open looks like. This is a chat from one of our regular co-working meetings where we get together on Zoom every 2 weeks. Whoever can come, you don't need to apologize if you can't, just show up when you can. People come to work on their own, the things that they need to get done. And one day it was Luis Lopez developing a new feature for that Earth Access library. And he was able to show up and have an audience of collaborators who would test and troubleshoot this feature together so that he could get unstuck and move forward. So this is a really cool example of three different parts of the NASA organization coming together, and then all of them being able to now know that this feature was available and share that across NASA. Open can also look like asynchronous contributions. So we all invested in learning GitHub together and having a workflow where we use pull requests. And this way, when someone like Alexis adds some updates to the cookbook, this will pass through all of our inboxes. And I don't necessarily need to go and look at all of her updates at that moment. Someone else will be able to review that. But we all have a sense that she's made some updates to, in this example, the glossary or the cheat sheets. Another thing that open looks like and how we've been able to fork so many ideas is that we use GitHub for project management so that we can use the same tool for project management and shared to-do lists as we do for our code and documentation. And earlier this year, we started using this new roadmap feature in GitHub projects that allow you to attach a date to the issue and then see more of a calendar view of your issues. So that was something that we all tried to do so that we didn't all have to be keeping track of dates for abstract submissions or when workshops were happening. But a big part of what open looks like as well and how to develop this forking worldview is really investing intentionally in teamwork and providing spaces where people can reflect on what's working and what's not working and have empathy with each other. So I mentioned psychological safety before. This is something we invest in with all of our teams. It's the idea that team members are not rejected or embarrassed for speaking up with their ideas and concerns. And we're also constantly trying to build this growth mindset, this power of yet, where this is hard. I haven't seen it before, but I don't know how to do it yet, but I'm capable of learning. So these are some examples of some of the things we talk about during our regular calls, where we have Google Docs and have different ways that people can speak up either verbally or written. Yeah, we've written a we've just published a piece about what these co-working sessions look like. People have described them as sort of joyful accountability time where people can come together and see what each other are working on and get ideas that they can then work into their own work or promote within their teams. So this I'll put a link directly to this in the chat later. But this I think this publication is actually really powerful in saying like the biggest idea we can share about shifting culture change, shifting institutional culture to develop climate solutions with open science. Our biggest idea is to have these regular meeting times where you really hold intentional, respectful conversations and tap into the knowledge base of our workplaces and harness that to evolve whatever the big challenges that we need to face. A few parting about all of this is, we don't have all this figured out. There's challenges. This work is really hard. Supporting people and helping people collaborate is really hard work. And I would say in academia, we're really not taught how to collaborate. We're taught how to think that we're individuals. And then there's a lot of, sort of older workflows that reinforce that, that individual. So learning not only new tech skills around open and collaboration, like that's hard, but also the mindset and the skills around collaboration are hard. So we don't have this all figured out at all. But we're in the spirit of open science and open source, we're trying to learn openly and share openly together. One thing that's really on my mind is that if we're asking people to change, we need to be willing to change ourselves. I think about this a lot with organizations supporting a shift to open science. There's still infrastructure that exists that makes it really hard to do that. Like that example of Earth Access being an open source development within a government, like it's radical because there's a lot of architecture that exists for good reason that makes it hard to be so open and fluid. But I think some of the biggest sort of opportunities and challenges are around time to learn. I think this is sort of our biggest, when people ask us, from what our view, what do people need? Like, what's the biggest thing we need? We need time to learn and contribute and connect with each other. Like having that time to troubleshoot an error or watch a TED talk from a totally different field that might spark an idea or to connect with colleagues is such a big part of this all. There's also a need to trouble current processes with open source approaches, like the question why things are the way they are, like why is this reimbursement form so cumbersome? Like how could we like have a shared vision to not make to sort of put our attention elsewhere? Like why are systems the way they are? And also this is from a colleague, Steve Diggs, the idea that it's inclusion plus equity equals diversity and not the other way around. Like we need to create spaces and systems that enable more people to participate. So this is a one book from a US government perspective that's really thinking and doing a lot on this front of supporting teams and systems to change within big bureaucracies. So I highly recommend this, and I am excited to like fork these ideas more into science. I feel like I'm going to skip. We can talk about the challenges maybe in discussion. I'm just aware of how long I'm talking. So my last slide here is just thinking, just being inspired by what's possible from all of this, by all of our solutions and solvers together, so that we can focus more time on the work to be done. and have improved morale daily for ourselves and our teams, and really focus on climate and social change and the biggest things we can, yeah, we can do together. So I'll end there. And excited to talk with you all about this. Thanks so much.